Lesson 7. The most famous dinosaur. Can a single idea change the world, unite countries, bring hope in the midst of hopelessness? Today's lesson is about one man who thought that it could, and he went to great lengths to test his theory. While some might say it was a failure, the ripples of his action are still felt today. His philosophies has impacted countless people throughout the years, and his action spoke much louder than his words. He was not a scientist like other people who have studied so far. He was actually a businessman and philosopher. And while you might wonder how this could possibly connect to the world of dinosaurs, you are about to see that being a fossil hunter in the field or a taxidermist in a museum are not the only ways to advance science. Meet Andrew Carnegie. Born in Scotland in 1835, Andrew Carnegie was raised as an industrious family. His father was a weaver who championed the rights of the working class. They immigrated to the United States, where 12-year-old Andrew got a job in a cotton factory. Have you ever played the game where you start with a paperclip and trade your way up and see what you can get to? Our young entrepreneur began with some of the lowest jobs and yet traded up through his hard work and quick thinking. When he was 14, he became a messenger in a telegraph office, working his way up to a personal secretary, telegrapher, and eventually the superintendent of the railroad when he was just 24 years old. At this time, Carnegie was well on his way toward success, and he invested some of his money on an idea to bring a sleeping car into the American railroad. Not one to put all his eggs in one basket, he also invested in various other industries, including building, iron, oil, the railroad, and heating. Like a winning round of Monopoly, his investments started to bring a return. Carnegie continued to grow his investments and founded the Keystone Bridge Company, which built iron bridges. With successful investments and a wealth of experience in management, Carnegie also founded a steel company. Not only did he become an entrepreneur, but he also led the cutting-edge field of manufacturing. He implemented new processes and systems and controlled his own supply chain as much as possible, thus becoming a new model for the American production plants. In 1901, when he was just 66 years old, he sold Carnegie Steel for $48 million, which today would be equivalent to nearly $15.5 billion in today's economy. Did you know that Andrew Carnegie was drafted into the U.S. Civil War, but paid another man $850 to stand in his place? This was not uncommon for those who were wealthy enough to afford it. What do you think about this practice? Do you think that was wrong or right? Talk about it as a family and see if you can find other wealthy people who have also paid for a substitute. Now what? Carnegie is known as one of the greatest American philanthropists of all time. A philanthropist is someone who helps others, often most recognized by donating large sums of money to their causes. Near his retirement, he wrote an article about wealth, later called the Gospel of Wealth, stating that the extremely wealthy people of the world had a moral obligation to distribute that money among society. The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced, he stated in an article. Carnegie was not perfect. Some say he was more focused on the efficiency and production than on the way he treated his workers, but he did practice what he preached. He gave hundreds of millions of dollars away to universities, libraries, trusts, theaters, child welfare centers, and more. He sought to promote peace and understanding between leaders and countries when he founded the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in 1910, just 4 years before the First World War. And here's where we discover what drove the fascinating connection between paleontology and philosophy unity. Through his many humanitarian efforts, Carnegie founded the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh, and then funded paleontology expeditions to contribute to his museum. In one of the expeditions in a Wyoming quarry, new species was discovered named Diplodocus, Carnegie, in honor of the generous sponsor. Known as Dippy, the Diplodocus was massive and nearly complete, giving an awesome depiction of what these incredible creatures had once looked like and just how big they were. He created a plastic replica and sent it to England to Natural History Museum as a gift. This huge dinosaur attracted the masses to come and see it. Other countries soon requested replicas of their own. More than just a new scientific find, Dippy was the most famous dinosaur reconstruction in the world and the most widely reviewed. Carnegie saw the potential to unite the nations through their passion and interest for paleontology, which was a big trend at the time. The cost of casting was high, and never had it been done on such a grand scale. All in all, 10 separate models were made and sent in many crates all over the world. Carnegie died only 1 year after the war, possibly believing that the worst was behind them. His hopes for world peace was unfortunately not attained quite so easily. But his heart for unity, by whatever means, was admirable, and his life's works did have a meaning, the echoes of which are still heard over 100 years later. The Diplodocus was a sauropod. That is the same genus as the incorrectly named Brontosaurus that we learned about a few lessons ago. Sauropods such as Brachiosaurus, Camarasaurus, Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, and most recently the Titanosaurus, are known to be giants of the dinosaur world. These dinosaurs are known by their large swaying tails and long necks. Called quadruped because they have 4 feet, they walked on all fours and were slower animals because of their great weight and size. All sauropods are considered to have been herbivores, and because of their shape of their head, flat, grinding teeth, rather than sharp, tearing teeth of carnivores, such as T-Rex. They are highly sought after in museums because of their grandiose, awe-inspiring size and overall wow factor. Most Diplodocus fossils have been found in Rocky Mountains in parts of the Morrison Foundation, found by a man named Arthur Lakes. This formation is a large ridge of sedimentary rock that reaches into both Wyoming and Colorado. There have been many dinosaur fossils found there, including tracks, eggs, sauropods, including world-renowned Dippy, composed of a combination of sandstone, siltstone, mudstone, and limestone. The Morrison Foundation remains one of the most populated fossil dig in the world. The Diplodocus is known for his name means double bean. He was found in Wyoming in the U.S. He's a herbicide or herbivorous. He was 108 feet tall and weighed about 17 tons. A steely choice. Do you remember what the replicas of Dippy were made of? If you said plaster, you are correct. The plaster casts were made one by one to create copies of all 292 bones. Once they were done, they had to be put together so they could stand. You might remember that not too many years before, Carnegie had owned one of the largest manufacturing plants in the world. It was therefore no surprise when the Carnegie Museum used the solid strength of steel to connect these bones. Acting almost like ligaments that hold our bones together, pieces of steel gave structure and support to the skeleton. While they helped to hold Dippy together, they were not enough to make it stand and bear the weight of the plaster bones. To help with that, a steel arm was constructed underneath the tail to give it a solid foundation. All of these bones and pieces of steel took up a lot of space, and remember, Carnegie made many of these and shipped them all over the world. They had to be packed and shipped in over 30 large crates, only to be carefully reconstructed like a giant piece of a certain type of Scandinavian furniture. Okay, but maybe it was worse. Because Dippy is so popular, he is required to have deep, thorough cleaning twice a year. He gets covered in dust and gets pieces and bits of debris from visitors stuck in odd places in his gigantic body, giving the specialists who clean him a difficult job. Not only do they have to stand on ladders and movable platforms to clean all those hard-to-reach places, they also have to make sure to be extra careful, using special vacuums and natural fiber brushes to get him looking shiny and new. It is a huge job and takes a number of days and a lot of people. We have learned that great scientific gains were made by both university graduates as well as school dropouts, young children and old men, self-taught students of the world, and wealthy businessmen. There were many ways that one might play a role in the pioneering field of paleontology, from making amazing finds, striking observations, imaginative art, or genius engineering that helped to make supportive massive replicas, to funding long and expensive expeditions. The natural history museums that were popped up in many states and countries were places where budding paleontologists and fossil hunters could study and learn from those who had gone before them. No one was disqualified, and anything was possible, no matter the background or experience. While Dippy himself might not have unified the nations, the worldwide fascination with dinosaurs acted like a great equalizer, uniting people of different races, beliefs, and backgrounds in one commonality. Carnegie played a role in igniting wonder and shared knowledge across the boundaries of borders. And that concludes Lesson 7 for today.